Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Namo Namaha. Many people are familiar with the phrase, "In God we trust." The English word God points to a, quote, one male as opposed to goddess, creator being noun, an ultimate authority, a final noun meant to resolve uncertainty. Our Father, kingdom come. For others, the word carries different meanings, or perhaps none at all. What matters here is honesty. This definition, however meaningful to many, is not universal. Even among the monotheists, God becomes a vague and often conflicting term. Is Yahweh, Hashem, God? Is Jesus God? Is Allah God? Certainly when religions outside of the three monotheistic religions, when they use God, the waters really get muddied. Is Krishna God? Shiva God? Certainly Kali is not God, and the confusions continue. If God simply becomes a generic term, are all men using the same name? Then it loses any profound meaning at all. And as far as a greater source of what? This podcast proposes a different inquiry. What if the trust we seek is not placed in a fixed noun, but in a quality of engagement with life itself? What if this trust is grounded not in certainty, but in the willingness to go deeper, to question, to discern, to integrate, and to live fully? With that spirit, let's explore the phrase, "in depth we trust." Now, this is a picture of the cosmos. It could also be the bottom of the oceans. It's interesting to reflect on the science that says that 95% of our known universe is made up of the no-thingness, the dark energy, the dark matter. So too, we've only explored about 10% of the oceans. So literally, are we not surrounded by depth? And here, depth is not offered as a belief to adopt, but as a practice to embody. It does not ask for obedience only, but only engagement. It does not close inquiry, but invites it. The reflections that follow draw, of course, from Hindu yoga philosophy, but from psychological states of being, lived experience, and comparative religion. Not to elevate one tradition over the other, but to illuminate a pattern that runs through life itself. At the end of the essay, a set of clear definitions of depth is offered as a compass for discernment. Speaking of compass and direction, we often begin and end our satsangs with striving to find our inner compass, our inner direction, our inner GPS. Here we use it as an acronym for gratitude, persistence, and sacrifice. To the Hindus, that would be Dhanyavad Vira Seva. In other words, saying thank you. I can do this using your warrior spirit. And who can I help? Dhanyavad Vira Seva. Just think of that. And think of the opposites. If we never say thank you, if we fail to accomplish our tasks, and if we don't help anyone, we have truly lost our way, our moral compass, if you will, our internal compass, GPS. Life, of course, is not static, but a rhythm, a dance. Nataraja, the divine dancer. This dance can be seen from atoms splitting and recombining, to cells dividing and regulating themselves, to human psychology breaking and rebuilding. Existence moves through alternating phases of disruption and stabilization. One force breaks open what has become rigid, another holds together what must endure. Health biological, psychological, depend upon this relationship, not on choosing one against the other necessarily. Catabolism, not cannibalism, is the process that breaks down structures to release energy and make transformation possible. The homeostasis process maintains balance so that life can continue. Neither is essentially good or bad in itself. Catabolism without homeostasis is destruction. Homeostasis without catabolism is stagnation. Life requires this oscillation. Now let's, as Hindus, look at Shiva and Vishnu. In Hindu cosmology, this rhythm is personified rather than moralized. Shiva embodies purposeful breakdown, destruction, renunciation, dissolution, confrontation with impermanence. Vishnu, however, embodies continuity, presence, equilibrium, preservation. These are not rivals, and they should not be, Harihara, Ekarupa Guna Shila, but they're complementary functions. One opens and the other sustains. From the cold austerity of the Himalayas to the warm, fertile seas of Kanyakumari, India itself mirrors the teachings of balance through extremes. Civilization here did not erase difference. It learned to inhabit the middle without denying the edges. Balance is not the absence of extremes, it is the relationship between them. This is our NAT principle, N-A-T. One's way, this could be any way actually, could refer to politics, professions, certainly relevant here, religions. One's religion is not the way, the pure, if you will, fundamentalist, or no way, which is the fundamentalist universalist, epitomized by today's New Age, spurious yoga, where they're doing something very specific, hence the fundamentalism, claiming that that fits into everybody's tradition, everybody's way, everybody's religion. That's an interesting one. And then, conversely, we often said that yoga has nothing to do with religion, and then countering that by saying, but yoga fits into anybody's religion. Totally illogical. So let's look at this NAT principle, the N-A-T. The N and the T are extremes that we all go through. That's why as Hindus we sing Saralu Lahara, the truth of the swing of life that destroys our ignorance. As we go from one extreme to the other, eventually settling in the middle, sattva, equilibrium, balance. So there is a middle point between the fundamentalist and the fundamentalist universalist, and that's a way. Say to yourself, my religion, my way, my politics, etc., is a way. It's not the way, and it's not a universal way for all. Here's where we need to understand the difference between transcend and transvalue. To transcend means to climb across and beyond through effort, through practice, and lived testing. Transvalue, however, is the opposite. It means to skip the climb by declaring oneself already beyond what has not been integrated. Think of that. That's the con man, the con woman, that quickly assumes authority, having done little disciplined work, little tapas, little sadhana, the 200-hour professional certifications, people buying college certificates, hanging them on their wall, having never attended. People buying police badges, perhaps, online and pretending to be law enforcement. Clarity cannot be skipped over. It has to be earned. The difference between transcend and transvalue is relevantly evident in the modern spurious 200-hour yoga certification process again. The true Hindu yogi surrenders their whole life to the austerities of the mystic, and thus spends decades in practice before ever, if ever, teaching. The former takes the dishonest shortcut of transvalue, while the latter truly transcends, having lived an entire life walking the Hindu yoga path. Simply look at the analogy of choosing a path up a mountain and then making the arduous climb, as opposed to never choosing a path or skipping over and just claiming that one is at the top, because obviously from the bottom we see the top. These can be found in such cliches as "we are all one," there's no divisions, no labels. Those are individuals at the bottom of the mountain, having never truly climbed. We have to live in order to transcend. Often it is said, using the word saint, the Western word, that in the Western monotheistic traditions one has to die to be a saint. In the Eastern traditions, we would say you have to live to be a saint if you will, right? And we don't discount the life process. Look at Valmiki, for example. He was a very bad man, but he realized that, and he did his own tapas. I know it's over the top, but it is said he sat so long that an anthill formed around him. Hence he became known as Valmiki, the anthill man, when he burst out and then wrote the classic Ramayana in the original Sanskrit. So in depth we trust. Let's look at some definitions of what is depth. Depth, of course, is not shy. Think of the astronauts who go into outer space. Think of the deep sea divers. Think of what's at the bottom of the oceans. Think of those who dive deep within themselves, the mystics throughout the ages. Depth entertains difficult questions, difficult lifestyles, and uncomfortable truths. Depth is also courage, the capacity to remain present amid uncertainty. Depth is discrimination, discernment, vivek. Depth is earned clarity, forged through effort and testing, sadhana. Depth is integration, the coordination of opposites. This is order, or ritta, the first word for the Hindu yoga dharma. Ritvijam. Depth is accountability and responsibility, hence dharma, or duty. Depth also requires patience, kashanti. True depth is also humble, vinayaka. Depth is contact with reality, satchit, ananda. Depth fosters compassion, karuna, forged by experience. Live life. Remember, without passion, we never develop compassion. Depth is also stability. Depth is non-attachment, vairagya. Think of the Western word that sounds very similar, which is about full attachment. Depth is memory, smriti. Actually, that's the first chakra, associated with Ganapati, of course, memory. Don't forget who you are. You are the Atmana. Tattvamasi aham brahmasmi, jyoti shakti ananda shanti, love, light, and energy. Om. This are we with emotions, mind, and body. Depth does seek truth, satya, no matter what the cost. Asato ma sadgamaya. In true depth, one does not steal or appropriate from others. Asteya. The various religious traditions of the world exist because of those who have dedicated their entire lives to a particular path so that others could benefit from it. Depth can also hold opposing views. Purvapaksha. Depth is silence. Mauna. Remember Mauna Vakya Para Brahman. The supreme experience of Brahman, the greater source of Satchitananda, is known how? Through the oxymoron of silent speech. Mauna Vakya. Muni Mula. The root of silence, which brings illumination. Muni Mula. Write it down. What is it backwards? Illumination. Lumina. Aluminum. So obviously the antithesis of depth is shallowness. Think, for example, that Yahweh, the Torah, bless. God, Jesus, the Bible, bless. Allah, Muhammad, the Quran, bless. This can create a man-made mess. Yes, the monotheistic religions do a lot of good, but they also, because of their exclusivity, do a lot of evil. In America, for example, how pure were the Puritans? Look at the infamous year of 1692, when 19 women were hung for supposed witchcraft. One 81-year-old man was slowly crushed to death. Dozens were imprisoned. Those accused of witchcraft ranged from 4 years of age to 81 years of age, 82 years of age. Shallow minds fear the unknown. Deep minds go there with reverence. Open and deep, or shallow and authoritarian, the choice is up to us. Human history is not merely a record of tools, beliefs, or institutions. It's a record of how deeply we have been willing to look and how open we have been willing to remain open while doing so. At every stage, humanity faces the same quiet choice: to live open and deep, or to retreat into what is shallow and authoritarian. Much of what we call theology, philosophy, and even knowledge itself has been shaped not only by insight, but also by environment. The great monotheistic traditions arose largely from austere, often desert landscapes, places where survival required unity, clarity, obedience, and firm boundaries. In such environments, it made sense that ultimacy would be imagined as singular, commanding, and external. In God we trust. Where do we find it? On the back of the money, huh? And the capital. Think of capital G-O-D, a one male creator being. Capital is also the seat of state governments. Capital is also about money. Where are we putting our trust? Civilizations, however, shaped by radical diversity, mountains, forests, rivers, deserts, cities, and oceans, tended to develop religious spiritual vocabularies that allowed for plurality, paradox, and multiple paths. Of course, that also can result in the negativity of being too tolerant. India's fault. Hinduism's fault. That's where the balance in the middle. When life appears layered and abundant, meaning is not imposed from above, but discovered beneath appearances. Unity is not denied. It was approached through diversity, not enforced against it. Unity in diversity. A unity in diversity. Yes, there's a unity, but also respect the diversity. Unity in diversity does not mean unity in sameness, which is the quote-unquote pure fundamentalist or the universalist, and not in blindness, which could relate to either one, the New Age universalist or the fundamentalist. Depth emerges as a powerful alternative, a way. Depth does not demand belief, though beliefs are important. It does not require immediate assent. One must think for themselves. Depth simply asks whether we are engaging life seriously or superficially. We often say take life seriously, but not too seriously. No one really proudly claims to be shallow. No tradition really celebrates superficiality. But depth bypasses theological combat and speaks directly to orientation. Depth doesn't point to thrones or heavens, but to layers upon layers, to silence, to interiority and seriousness. And depth can also tolerate ambiguity. It allows not knowing. In fact, in the Rig Veda, when it came to ultimate questions, in all profound humility, the rishis would say, ka vidya, who knows? Depth refuses to rush to closure. Shallow systems crave final answers. Depth can accept that which is unfinished. But depth has a cost. In the physical world, depth is inseparable from pressure. The deep ocean is another world within this world, worlds within worlds. Populated by luminous beings, strange forms of life, entire ecosystems, unfolding without witness. Anyone who has scuba dived, for example, knows that silence deepens as one goes deeper. And that training is also required to survive that kind of pressure. This is where religious sanctuaries, ashrams, monasteries often come into play. Of course, not everyone can go very deep. Not everyone can tolerate what depth demands. For all you young men, not every man is able to go into SEAL training, Green Beret training. That's for the few. And by the way, this is what traditionally always made a boy into a man, either military training and or monastic training for a year or two, where we have to think of somebody else rather than ourselves, avoiding becoming the adult that has never really grown up, never known any pressure, any depth in their life. For depth increases pressure, but it also increases meaning. This is perhaps why the emergence of AI at this moment is so revealing. AI really does not create depth, it condenses the human experience into depth. Centuries of inquiry, doubt, insight, error, and reflection go into this. It can deliver information instantly, but it can't confer wisdom. It can give you depth, but it cannot make anyone capable of receiving it. What matters in this case is not whether AI can answer your questions faster than older metaphysical frameworks. What matters is whether humans are willing to remain open while engaging what depth reveals. And here the word open quietly matters. Open implies unfinished, revisable, non-authoritarian. Open doesn't mean careless. It resists those of absolute certainty and those who think they have monopolies on meaning. Though there is meaning, there are certainties. Openness is what allows depth without collapse. However, without openness, depth hardens into obsession. Without depth, openness dissolves into distraction. Together they form a posture that neither conquers nor concludes. Closed systems promise certainty. Open systems invite curiosity. Ultimately, the question is not about belief systems, technologies, or even metaphysical claims. It's about posture, how we perceive them, what we do with them. Do we choose openness over closure? Depth over speed and superficiality? Do we choose humility over domination? Do we choose seriousness over cliches and slogans? Or will we perhaps choose a shallowness that's dressed as certainty? An authority mistaken for truth? Repetition instead of reflection? The universe does not force this choice upon us. Life simply presents it again and again and again, at every level, from theology to technology, from politics to personal conscience, open and deep, or shallow and authoritarian. The choice is not abstract. The choice is ongoing. And the choice quietly and unmistakably is ours. In depth, we trust.